Welcome up our moderator for the next session on the Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition, Jennifer Codo-Salisbury, Executive Director of the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. She leads a dynamic and multifunctional planning team that administers programs including resiliency, brownfields, hazard mitigation, geographical information systems, the Avon Park Air Force Range Sentinel landscape, military installation compatibility, local land use planning, and state and federal grant administration and coordination. She has more than 25 years of experience in urban planning, a master's in public administration degree from the University of South Florida, and is an AICP certified planner. Prior to joining the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, Ms. Codo-Salisbury managed several large-scale planning projects in the public and private sectors. Audience, please remember that you are welcome any time during the session to enter any questions you have into Menti, and they will be answered at the end. Jennifer, there you are. I leave it to you to introduce the rest of the panelists, and thank you for moderating this session.
Well, first, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, the CHNEP staff, for putting on this really great summit. There's just been so much great information, and it's greatly appreciated. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel as they are walking up, and I think I already have. There we go. All right, well, we are honored to have our three distinguished elected leaders from our Heartland communities today. I'm very excited to introduce them. We have Deputy Mayor Keith Keene, who is serving his third term on the Arcadia City Council. During his tenure, he has been mayor 4 times. He represents Arcadia on the Central Florida Regional Planning Council and has served as our chair and vice chair, where he also served. He is also a graduate of the Center for Disease Control Environmental Public Health Leadership Institute. Deputy Mayor Keene retired in 2018 as the Environmental Health Administrator for the Florida Department of Health in DeSoto and Highlands counties. Prior, he was an environmental health specialist at the Department of Health in Charlotte County. Deputy Mayor Keene earned his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of South Florida, go Bulls, after graduating from DeSoto County High School in 1971. Mayor Nathaniel J. Birdsong Jr. has been a long-serving, respected public servant, serving on Winter Haven City Commission. He was elected to seat number 2 in 2002 and re-elected in 2007, 2011, 2015, and 2019. He served as mayor in 2006 and 2007, as well as 2014 and 2015, and 2019, and today in 2024. And he has also served as the mayor pro tem in 2004, 2005, 2011, 2013, and 2017 to 2023. A Winter Haven native, Mayor Birdsong holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Florida A&M University and an MBA from Nova Southeastern University. And our third panelist is Commissioner Scott Kirouac, who serves District 3 of Highlands County. He has been a resident of Sebring since 1977, graduating from Sebring High School in 1980. He has been employed since 2008 with Hillary Peak Company, located in Groveland in Avon Park, as a sales consultant. He is also vice president of Big Sky Growers Incorporated. Commissioner Kirouac is the founder and chairman of Ag Angels Incorporated, a not-for-profit 501c3 charity in Sebring, Florida. Ag Angels was created in 2007 and has raised nearly $1 million, with 100% of donations going to Florida, to schools and organizations to purchase Christmas gifts and other needs for the less fortunate children. So before I turn over to our panel for some important questions regarding the Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background. The Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition really formed in 2021 and 2022, and it's composed of 7 counties, 5 of which are the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, including DeSoto, Hardy, Highlands, Okeechobee, and Polk, and also Glades and Hendry. And I'm probably pointing this the wrong way. Am I supposed to point it at that? Oh, all right. And what? Oh, down. That's me. Okay, one more time. I will get this. Thank you for your patience. This is the icebreaker. Nope. Okay, now we got it going. Here we go. So the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, for those of you not familiar with regional planning councils, there are 10 in Florida. We are the only regional planning council without a coastline, except we do claim part of Lake Okeechobee, but we are the only completely inland region. Our focus is really being a platform for collaboration and coordination in the region, working with our communities to reach their vision for the future. So we have 7 counties in the coalition, which include Glades and Hendry. These 7 counties are really interrelated and interdependent of each other. We have linked economies, natural resources, infrastructure, and in 2006, Heartland 2060, a grassroots initiative, kicked off, bringing all of these communities, 7 counties, 28 cities, local partnerships, school districts, water management district, transportation entities together to plan for our future. And as we look towards the future, the challenges that we've faced, we've had over 19 declared emergencies in our region since 2000. So we were very excited when the legislature noted inland communities also being able to assess funding as we look towards resiliency. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to our panel. And we will start with Mayor Birdsong from the City of Winter Haven, who currently is serving as the Central Florida Regional Planning Council Chairman.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Mayor Birdsong, I'd like to start out with a question. Can you, as the chair of the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, tell us how this formation of the Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition became a priority for the council and some of the highlights from your experience being a member of it?
All right, thank you again. Well, you've summed it up pretty well as it relates to the legislation that allowed the Central Florida Regional Planning Council and us to asset funds, and that was a big deal. All morning long, all day yesterday, we're the only areas of the state that don't have coastlines. And so for a long time, as you saw by my background, I've been an elected official. So we were not considered to have problems more or less with seawater rise and that much flooding. But over the course of the years, what has happened is that we have been faced with some of the same issues to a different extent. And the state of Florida, basically with their legislative endeavors, have now allowed us to become, to assess funds for resiliency. And to that extent, our Central Florida Regional Planning Council, we sent out a survey and of our municipalities to see if they would be willing to be a part of a coalition. And it was 100% where all of the municipalities and governments said, yes, we will participate in a coalition of, with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. So to that extent, we formed, and we actually got some funding for resiliency planning, and so we were off and running, and so we are still working hard, because basically there are issues that I was just listening this morning to Miami-Dade. There are things that were said about Miami-Dade that we face in the inland counties as well, as it relates to water and those sort of things. All right, Jennifer.
Thank you. All right, our next question is for Commissioner Kirouac from Highlands County. Commissioner, both inland and coastal communities are faced with aging infrastructure that is not sufficient to deal with extreme rainfall or other climatic events. Can you explain how your community is dealing with this, which may also be applicable and useful for other communities to consider in addressing this issue?
Jennifer, thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel today. One of the things Highlands County is doing is that we have decided to take an aggressive approach towards identifying where our issues exist in stormwater drainage. In 2021, we secured a $1.75 million loan through the state revolving fund to fund 3 water basin management studies that we're currently conducting right now. You know, one of the things that we certainly realize is that when it comes to dealing with stormwater, you really need a real comprehensive look at what's going on, and not just base what the fix is on maybe what some of your locals have noticed, or even some of your department people have noticed along the way, is that we really need to dig deep into what it's going to take to repair and improve some of these stormwater drainage issues that have literally been going on for decades and decades, and to do it right, because you got to be real careful when you're dealing with stormwater drainage, is that you really have to work from the bottom up. You have to first make sure you have an adequate drain to handle the water on any improvements that you're going to be making upstream. So those are all things that we're looking at. You know, analogy that I tell the public and what have you, that's in layman's terms, if any of you today go home and turn on your kitchen faucet full blast, you're going to watch the water go down the drain, and if your drain is not impeded in any way, you're not going to have any water build back up in your kitchen sink. Take the same sink and dump a 5-gallon bucket of water in your sink. It's not all going to drain down immediately. You're going to watch it slowly recede down into the drain. So when it comes to stormwater drainage, you really have to look at it comprehensively to see, you know, start from the bottom up. If we make improvements upstream, then as a county, we risk causing unintended problems in other areas. Could be for different neighborhoods or businesses and what have you. So we are taking a very serious approach, and we've also learned that what we have to do is, when it goes to funding, these are very complicated and expensive problems. And in the past 5 years, some of these projects have doubled in cost. So we want to put our county in a position that we have shovel-ready projects, because when you're looking for appropriations and funding, either state or federal-wise, they're looking for you to utilize that funding within that fiscal year for them, because they don't like asking for money that's not used, because next time you ask, you may not be so lucky in receiving it. So we're making sure that we're digging real deep into this, and you know, a real comprehensive approach, because we have to plan for now and plan for the future. Thank you.
I will not try to remove this, but thank you, Commissioner Kirouac. I'm just going to add to that for just a second. I love that analogy with the sink and pouring the water in, and talking about capacity, but I was also thinking of like my bathroom sink, and it might have capacity or enough to let some of that water in, but then I haven't cleaned it out in a long time. So I think we see that a lot of times in our drainage structures too. It's, okay, do we have capacity? How old is it? Is it crumbling? But looking at our stormwater in our neighborhood, I see plastic bottles, I see yard waste, I see a lot of impediments just from what education probably can do as well, and that's also one of our goals in the coalition, is to get that education out there. So thank you for letting me be a part of the panel as well. Oops, there you go. And just kind of echoing, as this kicked off, that when we look at regional resiliency, there was a study done really citing that for every $1 invested, $6 can be saved. And I know our resiliency manager, Sheila McNamara, quotes that daily as we look at kicking the can forward, as we talked about, at some point making that investment. So Deputy Mayor Keene, you are up. Arcadia was heavily impacted by Hurricane Ian, and the city is now embarking on building a more resilient stormwater and wastewater system. Can you describe how you are going about that and what lessons you have already been learning that make you think that would be helpful to share with other communities really facing these same challenges? I know the city was hit hard by Ian, and then with aging infrastructure, kind of building back with more resiliency.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. I'll give you a lesson learned to start with. Don't live in a poor county like DeSoto. We're one of the poorest in the state, but not the poorest. But we're a pull ourselves up by the bootstraps kind of folks, and so move forward. But I've been asked to talk about our stormwater and wastewater system, so I just want to share this narrative that I put together. In 2017, the City of Arcadia wastewater treatment plant discharged 1 million gallons of untreated wastewater into a tributary of the Peace River. This was caused by excessive rainwater, infiltration of the distribution system, and power outages caused by Hurricane Irma. We immediately took corrective action on the short term to improve the current wastewater treatment plant by reducing the infiltration and inflow levels and updating the trickling filter system. This helped us meet the current standards. You can understand DEP was not real happy with us at the time. So we were making progress. So we were able, DEP came to the rescue, to get some grant funding of $1.5 million to improve our existing plant. We did what they call smoke testing of our distribution lines to determine where the breaches were, because when we would have these heavy rainfall events, water would actually get into the pipes. You know, you always think about a pipe conveying the water somewhere else. Well, the water got in the pipes, conveyed it to our wastewater treatment plant, and overdid our capacity, resulting in the discharge. And the smoke testing helped us identify where to make repairs. So for the long term, we applied to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's Water Quality Improvement Grant, and we've been approved for $19 million to assist with replacing our existing wastewater treatment plant. That is just so exciting. When I saw 19 million, I went, no, that can't be right, but it was. And it gets even better with my next statement. We've just recently been approved for another 19 million to help meet the estimated cost of $40 million for the replacement of our plant. So we're also working on a plan to improve our wastewater treatment ponds and expand the treated wastewater being used by our golf course, a nearby citrus grove, and several private residences for irrigation. So our entire community will be impacted by this rebuild. We cannot prioritize sustainable long-term development without the complete update of our wastewater treatment plant and the distribution system. So along with the wastewater treatment plant issues, we've been experiencing issues with our outdated stormwater infrastructure, which is pretty much non-existent. So we're undertaking to upgrade the system to mitigate flooding, improve safety, and reduce the risk of property damage during the hurricanes and heavy rain events. This project will involve the assessment and improvement of our stormwater infrastructure. The upgrade may include construction of retention ponds, culvert upgrades, and creating a schedule of drainage feature maintenance to manage the stormwater runoff efficiently. By enhancing the stormwater management system, the project aims to future flood-related damages to homes, businesses, and public infrastructure. The estimated cost for this is $20 million. So we've applied to DEP Water Improvement Grant and the Resilient Florida Grant. We'll see what happens with that. Again, as another lesson learned when you're looking for this funding, it's to have a grant writer. So we've engaged someone with that. They're not actually a staff member. But we did hire a grant manager to be on staff to help manage these grants so that we meet the required deadlines and reporting requirements. We've been very blessed in Arcadia, especially the last 8 years. We've got a council that really understands. We've got a community that's engaged, and we have strong leadership, and that's all been critical to moving this process forward. I also want to share with everyone that the City of Arcadia is working with the FEMA Community Assistance Program to develop a long-term recovery plan. And partners include the EPA, the DEP, and CERCAP, and the report should be complete next month. And we'll sure to make that available to anyone who wants to see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Keene. Mayor Birdsong, how are you planning to build more water storage to meet water supply and natural systems needs, especially in the face of changing climatic events, which could increase storms, large rainfall events, and droughts?
Thank you again. One of the real issues that we face in Polk County, Winter Haven is the second largest city in Polk County. And over the past 20 years, the city has grown by 100%. 20 years ago, our population was 27,000. Today, it's 54,000. So with that comes some serious problems. And as you've heard earlier today, that the South Florida Water Management District basically has a moratorium on pumping from the upper aquifer. So one of the things that we have done in Polk County is we have formed a water cooperative. And that water cooperative is, we have 17 municipalities plus the county, all participating, because what we have been told is that what we're doing is not sustainable. So these alternative water supplies is what's going to allow us to continue to have water to grow and develop. And it takes cooperation from all of the municipalities. We are developing interconnects so that the water can go from east side to the west side. We are building actually 2 deep wells that will provide the water. And the Swift Mud has said that they're funding at least 50% of that. And from the 2-3 years that we've been in existence and working towards this, the cost has just gone up tremendously. We're now talking about roughly $500 million worth of costs for this alternative water supply. But it seems expensive, but we have no choice if we're going to continue to grow. Now, the city of Winter Haven, what we have been looking at for years is what we call our sapphire necklace, where what we're trying to do, the water that flows to South Florida, it comes through Winter Haven. And so what we're trying to do is not only restore some wetlands, but enhance that water flow. to South Florida. So our sapphire necklace, what it is it's roughly an area, you see it on the screen, it's over 2,000 acres. We do not own all of that land, but what we do own, we were just in the last 12 months, we purchased 375 acres for $10 million. And that's the first gem in our necklace, where what will happen is that it will be developed all around us, but there will be wetlands, and we're even looking at the possibility of putting a lower Florida well on that property. But there will be walking trails, and so that's what we're trying to pursue. And again, the water comes through Winter Haven that goes south. The Peace River, we were talking at lunch, and it was said that during the hurricanes that, they wanted to make sure that we didn't open the dikes to let the water come further south. And so, but that's basically what we're faced with, as well as what you all are faced with in South Florida. So our sapphire necklace is a big project for us, and as I said, it's over 2,000 acres, and what we're trying to develop and deal with. And the problem is that we do not own the property, and we are not able to buy the property. So it's getting the owners to buy into the water problem that we're faced as a municipality, and that they're faced and don't even know it. And so it's been a tremendous effort to get this first owner to sell us 375 acres. So we're moving full speed ahead with that project.
I will say when we are out in the region and we're talking about resiliency, we look to One Water as that model. And I know the city's planning staff, they work early and communicate often with landowners who might come in for a pre-application conference, example, for development, to talk about this project and look at opportunities for partnerships in a win-win. And this certainly benefits the area, but certainly the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary, the Peace River. This is just so critical from a regional standpoint as well.
Jennifer, I just wanted to add one other thing, because I didn't go into detail about what we feel is the way forward as it relates to water. We think, and we're pursuing, water is just one water. And so that means that you've got to restore, you got to recharge, you got to reclaim, and you got to reuse. All of those is just one water, and how you manage and use those is basically the way forward in the future. So, in fact, one of the problems with water and water projects in Florida is it relates to the areas with a one water plan. Is the state of Florida will not allow, we can't apply for projects as one water. And so we are trying to get the legislature to include one water plans as a part of the legislature where we can get grants to develop our one water plan. Because I don't know about the municipalities that are around you, but all of the wastewater treatment plants in a city like Winter Haven that's over 100 years old, a county that's over 100 years old, nobody has been building wastewater treatment plants in the last 5 years. Wastewater treatment plants, which is also how our water is purified and that sort of thing, they are old. There is a life expectancy for those plants. And so basically we are all going to be faced with, eventually you have to improve those wastewater treatment plants. And a wastewater treatment plant doesn't cost just a few $100s. It costs a lot of thousands of dollars. And even though the City of Winter Haven, we think that we manage our money as well, we don't have the money to go out and build a new wastewater treatment plant. So the One Water and all of that is interconnected, and that's what we're trying to pursue. But we know that we face some major problems. If we're going to have anywhere near the growth that we've had in the last 20 years, we can't do it the same way. So I'm sorry, Jennifer, I didn't mean to come back, but I wasn't thinking about our One Water, and I just want people to know about the One Water, because really and truly, it's really only one water.
I almost want to do a mic drop on that. That it really is. Thank you for that. I think one of the benefits of having a coalition is that the communities can share their experiences and challenges, and together as a region we can build upon that, and working really hard not to duplicate efforts either, but to build off of efforts already put in place. And I really think kind of before we had the Heartland 2060, which kicked off in 2006, we were operating kind of more as a vacuum, but since that initiative, we're able to really work together, partner, back to One Water. Water doesn't stop at the Polk County line and not go to Hardy or Highlands, and same with the cities. And we'll talk in a minute about vulnerability assessments, but those are going to be a great baseline for the region as we look at not only local projects, but regional projects. They won't let me be moderator again, I don't think, because I'll just keep talking. Oops, and Sheila, I gave you a plug, but I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to try to go back to my earlier slide here. Maybe. Nope. There we go. All right, Deputy Mayor Keene, circling back to the Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition, would you describe how you see the coalition working going forward in being a vehicle for advancing resiliency in the Heartland region?
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. I think one of the things that excites me so much about the Regional Resiliency Coalition is that, you know, all the members will be able to share their issues, share the lessons learned. They can share information about their planned projects and projects that they have underway, so that staff from each of the jurisdictions can help other staff and leaders can help leaders. The coalition as a group will look at regional issues, look for overlaps, and that should result in savings of money, not duplicating services. It's just that, you know, it's so important. More of us can get more done than one of us can. So working together is where it's at. So I'm really looking forward to the continued success of the coalition. I call it along the Peace River, from Polk County all the way down to the Charlotte Harbor. We've just come together working with other state agencies looking at water quality, water storage, economic development, which results in the resiliency and sustainability of the communities. I don't know what else to say, Jennifer. It's just really, really exciting, the things that the coalition can do together.
All right, thank you. And the slide on the screen is an example of that. Over, you know, many decades, there's been continued discussions about the Peace River restoration efforts, improving water quality, looking at tourism opportunities, just so many avenues, and not that anything you don't feel like anything comes out of a disaster like Ian, but what did happen was it brought attention back to the Peace River corridor, and the Department of Interior, FEMA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Economic Development Administration all have shown up as they have throughout our region to go back to this and start making these things a priority in these projects, which certainly have not only regional significance. None of us are isolated, but certainly the whole area and the state as well. Okay. All right, Commissioner Kirouac. As a policy committee board member of the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, how do you see science and other information informing the Highlands County Vulnerability Assessment and other community and infrastructure planning efforts?
I think I'll go back to what I had said earlier about the studies that we're doing that are currently underway in Highlands County, is that, you know, that is going to give us some strong factual science to look at our issues moving forward. You know, and I believe that is paramount in moving forward when decisions have to be made, when funding needs to be, you know, to seek funding, you need to have the best facts and the best documentation to back up what you're asking for, because like my other two colleagues have shared with us all up here, is that the cost of these projects has just skyrocketed. And for fiscally constrained counties, like most of us are part of, those challenges even become more and more. You know, I got elected to the county commission in 2020, and you know, one thing that I've learned is that the wheels of government move slowly. Things do take a lot of time. I became a politician by default, and I tell people I'm a politician that really doesn't care a lot for politics. Because politics gets in the way of getting good things done. Because I can assure probably most of you out there, if I had to ask any of you, how do you feel about, raise your hands if you're okay with us raising your taxes? I don't think anybody's going to raise your hand, including me. But for fiscally constrained counties, that becomes more and more of a challenge for us. So, you know, we really have to take a harder look at this on how we're going to pay for this, because I'm literally dealing with problems that have been going on for decades in our county. And being a conservative county, the can gets kicked down the road, like Jennifer had mentioned earlier. And kicking that can down the road, my experience not only in the public sector and the private sector, when you ignore problems, they don't go away, they just become more expensive problems to solve. So that's the tough part that we all have to deal with. And, you know, the first step in that is getting all your facts together, because you're going to be asking for a lot of money. You're going to be asking for a lot of help. None of us up here have the ability, off of our tax base, to fund these projects. Nor would any of you like that. Number one, we don't have the room left in millage to even create enough tax to fund these projects. So that is something that we all have to work together, because, as others had mentioned, and Jennifer has mentioned, you know, water flows from the north to the south. We clean up our problems in Highlands County, that means the water is going to more effectively move through our county and go south. Well, if they didn't correct their problems, guess what? It's going to cause bigger problems for them. So a collaborative effort is something that I think is critical in all this. I'm glad that we have a governor that has you know, taken steps to address these issues. You know, we don't only deal with hurricanes, we deal with flash floods. If you live in Florida, there's many summer days that we get these heavy rains. 1 acre inch of water is 27,000 gallons of water. There's times in Highlands County where we have gotten 4 inches of rain inside of a couple hours. That's 108,000 gallons of water that Mother Nature dropped per acre. 10 acres is over 1 million gallons of water. When you've got failing and aging infrastructure, which many of our communities do. You know, when I became a commissioner, I get calls from people that the county needs to come clean out my drainage ditch behind my home. Well, I get with staff, well, it's not a county drainage ditch. It was never adopted by the county. And many of you that live in smaller communities or older communities, you're faced with exactly that. These communities were never built to a standard back then that was adopted by the county for the county to maintain them. So now we have issues that we literally have drainage ditches in neighborhoods that are 50, 60 years old, that there's trees growing out of them. People have impeded on the right-of-ways, the easements to get equipment in there to address any of these problems is next to impossible. So you have to look at these neighborhoods. If they're going to be brought up to a county standard, then you have to create special taxing districts for that individual neighborhood. You have to do a drainage study. You have to identify the need, the cost of it. The county or municipality has to go and borrow the money, and then your neighborhood is going to have to service that debt until it's paid off. Because they were never adopted. The county tax dollars are not, that's not one of the responsibilities in these neighborhoods. And Florida is full of these neighborhoods. And that is going to be a big issue moving forward because nobody wants an extra tax or an extra assessment on their tax bill. But do we continue to ignore these problems moving forward? They're not going to get any better. They're only going to get worse because Florida is growing. 900 people a day have to have some place to live. And we have to manage our water and our stormwater in a way that we all work together through the entire state, because if we don't, it's going to be a failure. It's going to be a failure. So, we have to follow the science. We have to take a serious approach on this, and we all as Floridians have to realize to maintain the quality of life that we have here in the state of Florida, the beauty that we have, we all have to share in that. We all have to share in that expense in some small way, and that's not easy to do in today's world with inflation the way that it is. In today's world, if you're a single source income household, you cannot afford to make a living. You have to have a part-time job or another income coming into your household. So us as elected leaders up here, when we have to consider raising your taxes, we all see the world through a different set of eyes. There's people that cannot make ends meet today. So raising taxes is a very, very sensitive issue. But taxes fund everything. Federal government, state government, county government, municipality government, they don't have any of their own money. They have our money. So we have to figure ways to best use that money and all work together to solve our problems. So, I look forward to working with my partners and these two fine gentlemen that I've met just today, and we've been on some conference calls before this, but this is how it all starts, is all of us sitting down, talking about these problems and working together and working with our state and federal leaders and bringing funding back to our areas to solve this problem moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. It was one of the earlier presenters today that had a slide up with the Department of Defense. We have the Avon Park Air Force Range in our region. It's actually in 2 counties, Polk and Highlands. And the Department of Defense has noted the importance of resiliency, and they have funded a military installation resilience review for the Avon Park Air Force Range, but it's more focused on the communities that support the installation. We have some photos during Ian. The installation, which also has a correctional institution on it, was an island, literally an island. The roads were flooded out, which means part of the community was flooded out. So the Department of Defense is looking at funding infrastructure improvements in those communities, for example, and that's back to partnerships and looking together at those opportunities. That was actually something our regional resiliency manager, Sheila McNamara, who I'd have a slide, see? There we go, had identified in working with efforts in resiliency in the coalition, where can we find other funding and who are we partners with, who does this impact? So looking for those opportunities. The Florida Wildlife Corridor is another opportunity as well. As we look at all of the things we just talked about, it's integral to our wildlife, our water quality, and our fabric, definitely in the heartland and of course in the state. So opportunities, and I know Sheila spends a lot of her time working to connect the dots, raise funding opportunities to the communities. So we are excited. We are still in our infancy as a coalition, but the path forward, I think, is bright in working together. So I think we are probably ready for our questions. And Jennifer had prepped us, so we were like ready golf, trying to move through our presentations where we would be too long. So maybe we have the opposite. We have more time for questions. We'll go with the first one. How do you see open space as helpful to resiliency in your communities? And I'll actually turn that over to Mayor Birdsong. I think a lot of One Water also considers that critical component.
Yes. Well, one of the problems that you face with development is that when you have a rule that says that you can put 5 houses to an acre, that doesn't leave very much space when you put your infrastructure in for open spaces and green spaces. Well, that's one of the things that we are looking forward to putting in place, is that developments will have more open green spaces. And we are actually in our Sapphire Necklace with that 300 plus acres that I spoke about. A lot of that will be parks and green spaces, and it actually will space that will recharge what used to be, and that's the problem that we face, but that we are really writing into our ordinance and our developments so that we will have more open spaces, because water that goes back to the wastewater treatment plant or into our lakes is not the great benefit that we need to have with One Water, all of our water. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Keene, what level of support are inland communities getting in their Hurricane Ian recovery efforts? Is it enough or is more needed? And if so, what is needed?
Well, I can only speak for Arcadia, what's happening with Arcadia. We've been so lucky. It was at the end of last year, FEMA had brought their community assistance folks to town and started having weekly meetings and creating this long-term recovery plan that I had mentioned earlier. So it's been very helpful. It's my understanding that, they're planning to use what they're doing in Arcadia as a demonstration project for what they can do in other communities. So I'm really excited to see the final product. I've seen a draft and it looks awesome. Is it enough or is more needed? More is always needed. How can you get past that? But what is needed? Again, I wanted to mention this earlier when one of my fellow presenters was speaking up here about collaboration. And I had mentioned that more of us can get more done than one of us. That's the way we get things done, the way we move forward. For example, with the FEMA Community Assistance Program, for gosh sakes, the EPA showed up. I was blown away. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? This was great, to have them involved. Our state agencies, the Department of Environmental Protection, the Water Management District, the I had learned of one just from this exercise that I thought I mentioned earlier, the CHNEP program. It's the Southeast Rural Community Assistance Program. You know, I'm not the smartest guy on the stage up here, but I had never heard of them before. And as I have learned more, they are really focused on public health, which struck home for me, you know, being working for the Department of Health for 30 years. And they help with housing and economic development. So I'm hoping to have more to report to y'all as time goes on. But I was thinking about so many things, Jennifer, if I can go off topic of the question just a minute. When Mayor Birdsong was talking about green space and all, I was the first mosquito control director for DeSoto County. It was really just another hat that I wore as environmental administrator there. Also did the same thing in Highlands County, working in that same capacity. But mosquito control is so important to the health of our citizens. And where do mosquitoes come from? Standing water. That's why we're all here. We're trying to figure this out. Standing water is not necessarily a bad thing, you know, unless it's in your house, of course. And but you know, we do need those detention areas that will hold water. So we've got to figure out a way to control the organisms that live in the water. You know, mosquitoes that breed and lay eggs there for the health of our community. So, you know, just can't speak to how important that is. Thanks.
Well, I did not know that you were in charge of mosquito control. All right.
I can bleed a chicken quicker than you've seen.
Okay, I know who to call. I'm actually going to...
Jennifer,
Oh,
I see a question that's addressed to me that I'd like to answer.
yes.
Is that all right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, the question is, Mayor Birdsong, can the city stop issuing building permits until you have the infrastructure to support the growth? I want to make it clear, I didn't want to give the impression that we did not have the infrastructure to support the growth that we have had. The point that I was trying to make is simply this, is that the infrastructure that we have is an aging infrastructure that's got to be improved. And yes, we do have a plan and we are working on regular improvements to that infrastructure. And before we approve any new development, there's a requirement. We have to have the roads, we have to have the schools, and we have to have the water concurrency in order for that development to be built. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that perfectly clear. There are challenges, but we're meeting those challenges.
There is a question that I'd like to take. It says, is applying for resiliency funding through a collaborative, more efficient, thank you, is applying for resiliency funding through a collective is more efficient as many counties are facing the same issues. Is it difficult to agree entering federal funding for regional improvements? I just wanted to mention an example. Our board came together and voted to agree to apply for a community development block grant mitigation grant, which allowed us to look at our counties and actually look at a regional flood study. And that actually is being applied across 6 of the regional planning councils in the state. But with them coming together, with the board of the Central Florida Regional Planning Council coming together, they voted to apply for that grant and voted when it was awarded to go ahead and execute that grant. that project, that modeling is really going to be key. Again, another baseline and building into the vulnerability assessments. But that was just one example where we've had our counties come together looking at that opportunity for funding. And I'll turn the rest of that question over to Commissioner Kirouac. If you have anything to add, I know we were talking about grant funding and kind of some priorities are really put on coming together and not working in isolation.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, I mean, it is difficult, you know, it's going to be difficult to address these problems without state and federal funding. And where the public and the taxpayers can come into play to help this out is to advocate to our state and federal representatives of how important it is. You know, it's their jobs when they're elected by we the people to bring funding to their districts. And we're doing a much better job and a more aggressive approach in Highlands County to put our name in the hat for funding. And believe me, it is complicated. It is very complicated. And we spoke about this a little bit at lunch, is that one thing a coalition offers, and the collaboration between the members, offers each of us assistance in navigating this very complicated process when it comes to funding. Like I said, there are no drainage issues that are cheap issues to fix. They're all very, very expensive and challenging issues, especially, like I said, in aging communities. So, yeah, the question, counties facing the same issues, yes. Is it difficult to agree? No, I think the more conversations we have like this, I think we're all realizing that we must agree. We must attack this together, because if we don't, you're just going to push your problems to somebody else. A lot of times when I go on site with constituents about drainage issues, you need to stop their water from coming onto my property. It says, well, number one, it's not their water, it's Mother Nature's water. They didn't want it either. It says, but I can tell you, whoever's downstream from you, what if they tell me the same? We don't want their water coming onto our property. So, we all have to work together on this. Florida is one of the fastest growing areas in the nation, and that's not going to stop. We need to continue to work together to develop wisely, and that comes to density, like Mayor Birdsong had mentioned. Developers look to get as much as they can per acre of property. That's what makes the most sense, right? When you reduce that density, then those challenges to develop that infrastructure, the road, the drainage, everything they're responsible for in developing that community, okay? The math doesn't always work, so we all have to work together, because funding is something we're not going to be able to accomplish this as a state without help from the federal government, and the counties and municipalities are not going to be accomplish this by themselves without state and federal help.
We do a lot of community engagement and visioning, and we always show that slide. It takes a community, and I think that this takes a region, and these examples just really further highlight that. Some examples at a zoomed-in level, when we're talking about don't flood out my property, is simple as something as replacing a septic tank. If you didn't have a mound and now you have to put in a mound, then there's off-site water to your neighbor's property. And we see that in some communities that were platted with 50-foot, 40-foot wide lots, and that's just at that level. So it's all integral. Looking at the questions, there was an earlier question about Lee County's Conservation 2020 program. And I really will defer to all three panelists, but Polk County just recently approved Forever Polk Forever, for additional funding for conservation. And Highlands County also has a conservation fund. These funds have been really critical, and it's really providing government funds, but what we've seen in Polk and Highlands is a partnership with landowners and other funding sources. A lot of those successes have been willing property owners, but also matching funds, sometimes from the Nature Conservancy. In Highlands and Polk, we've had matching funds from the Florida Defense Support Task Force, and I think there's just even more opportunities with the Florida Wildlife Corridor and the opportunities that opens for partnerships. But I would turn it over to any of you if you wanted to provide anything further on that. I know Highlands County has the Natural Resources Advisory Committee. And
Yeah, we have our Natural Resource Advisory Committee, and actually our lead person, Dawn Ritter's out there in the audience, and Dawn has done a great job. Actually just met with her last week, and we talked about our Conservation Trust Fund and some of the challenges that we have there because, you know, particularly right now, it just gets funded through different types of building or mitigation fees that are collected in development in our county. And with the extreme increase in land values, those funds do not keep up with acquiring more conservation areas for our county. So we are looking at some other ways that possibly that we could fund our conservation trust funds. So, you know, like Mayor Birdsong and Deputy Mayor Keene had said, you know, green space is very important to have. You know, when you turn pervious surface into impervious surface through development, that water all now has to run somewhere. So, you know, green space is a good thing. You know, it's something that we need to conserve in all of our counties and what have you, and take a hard look at. But yeah, there's something that's a shortfall that we have recognized when it comes to funding wise, and I think probably y'all are in similar situations. So that is something that we are looking hard at addressing now.
I just want to say that our county manager is out there, and Polk County is one of the counties that we are constantly looking to add to our green spaces. In the project that I was just speaking about, Polk County had already established a 100-acre Circle B reserve that is just one of the major projects that we have in Polk County. And the city of Winter Haven, at 300+ acres, we will develop a similar nature preserve. And one of the reasons that the owner was interested in us pursuing what we pursued is that with the acreage that we're talking about, the way that we're going to restore the wetland areas is basically going to create an additional water feature. So there will be lots that have waterfront as opposed to just regular land. And so we will be putting forth another 100+ acre nature preserve in the city of Winter Haven.
I think we see time after time, too, when you do property value studies, those communities that have open space, preserves, walking trails, waterfront, really it adds to the value of the properties.
I can't really speak. Of course, you know, the city of Arcadia is only 4 square miles, so we don't have much conservation opportunities there, but I do want to mention one. But before I do that, I want to share that DeSoto County, I don't think has a formal conservation plan, but there are properties that have been designated, have been brought into the conservation easement program with the state of Florida. I'm not sure whether it's with FWC or DEP, but there are several ranches I know that have become involved in that. But I could have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the wastewater treatment system. We're also redoing our ponds there at the wastewater treatment plant. And we've had some engineers propose to us to rehabilitate the ponds in such a way that it can become green space that can be enjoyed by citizenry to get out. You know, I mean, it's a really high level water quality improvement project for our detention ponds, you know, for the wastewater treatment plant. But we're really looking forward to perhaps having a recreation area adjacent to this with the wetlands that are being rehabilitated for the filtration of our treated wastewater.
That might actually partially answer this next question, which would be to all of you. If you had a large budget, what do you think would be most important resiliency projects to prioritize in your own community? Does the Heartland Action Plan help build out priorities? Well, I'll answer the bottom of that first and turn it over to y'all. Yes, the Heartland Regional Resiliency Action Plan, the draft that we have, it does, and it really hits on just so many facets, not only infrastructure, but our economy, affordable housing, just every aspect of, I keep saying we have been looking at resiliency for decades. Planners certainly have made that a priority, but yes, but I'll turn over that kind of that key question we always ask in communities. If you didn't have to think about money, what would be your most important projects?
Jennifer, I think, for Highlands County, as far as being one of the 5 commissioners, one of the things that I would prioritize would be looking at the results of our studies, our basin management studies that we're doing right now, and we need to address the most severe areas first. Not the areas that maybe have the most political pull, not maybe the areas that are, one thing that I feel we have a responsibility as government is to assure a standard of a quality of life to the taxpayers. So I have identified many problems throughout our county, like I said, that have been going on for decades, but that keeps getting kicked down the road. I said, no more. I said, no more. As painful as some of these things may be, we need to address them. So if I had a large bucket of money, then we would prioritize the priority projects. We would, and through working with our partners and also seeing on the moves that we're going to make on how it's going to affect them also is very important. So, resiliency and building infrastructure, like Hurricane Ian, the governor had mentioned that could be potentially a 500-year flood event. The gentleman that spoke earlier about the flooding at Fort Lauderdale Airport, 20 inches of rain in 24 hours. Those things show your weaknesses. In agriculture, when we have weaknesses in irrigation during droughts, and we see where our weaknesses are. During stormwater events, flash floods, hurricanes, we identify where our weaknesses are during those times, but also there's things that contribute to those weaknesses that may not be right where that problem is. So finding what is contributing to those weaknesses, it may be the drain way downstream that I spoke about earlier. So we have to prioritize the things as they're needed. We need to fix the drain first. We don't need to prioritize a project, maybe, I want to fix your flooding problem in your neighborhood. Yes, but if I don't fix the drain first, this isn't going to fix your problem because we have nowhere to move this water to. So working from the bottom up is going to be, I think, a priority of ours, certainly to make sure any improvement that we make is going to actually drain to where it's supposed to and not cause further problems for people that may have not had a drainage problem.
I'll be last.
Save the best for last. Scott, I've got to agree with everything that you just said. To answer that question, though, my goal would be to completely restore, rebuild our infrastructure system, the wastewater treatment plant, our distribution system, because we haven't talked about that a whole lot, but we've got some of that undergoing in the city of Arcadia now with the rebuild of Highway 70 right through the city. And they tell me that's a 3-year project, so we're just getting started. But second to that, I think it would be important that, we really make sure that we've engaged our community and we understand what they want as an elected official and as a driver of moving things forward to get buy-in. And we really have done that in Arcadia with our infrastructure issues. That is the number one thing. Every time we have a meeting or a survey our community, that's always on the top priority. So we're super on board with that. But, you know, once you get that done, then we can, you know, we've just added 4 new apartment complexes to the City of Arcadia. And we barely got that in with the wastewater treatment plant issues that we were having. Some were already under construction. And we were concerned that, you know, with a consent order, we were not going to be able to turn them on. But it's looking like we're there. We're moving forward. DEP has been very good with working with us. But we still have those housing needs. And I personally, this is Keith Keene, citizen of the City of Arcadia in the state of Florida, get concerned with what is attainable housing, affordable housing, workforce housing. What I would like to see in Arcadia is us get to a point, and this is resilience because we need this, to have housing that our firefighters, our nurses, our school teachers can afford, you know, because oftentimes they make just too much money to go in some of the attainable housing that's being built, and they don't make enough to actually get into a single-family home. So that would be my goal, is to get us to that point.
Well, if I had a large budget, I'm sitting here, I'm going to say I have a large budget. But if I had more money than what we could spend, there's not just one thing that I would spend that money on. First and foremost, you have to have the things that sustains life. Without the water, I mean, you can forget it. You won't be here to spend the rest of the money. If I had to spend the money on the water, then I would need to have the roads to run over. That's another area that the state of Florida faces, not just the small towns, the cities. There's just not enough major roads to handle the traffic that we have in the state of Florida. If you go 75, 95, I-4, I mean, 10, all of those roads. But we don't have one of those except for I-4 that runs through Polk County. So I would address roads and the internal roads inside of Winter Haven. Then you got to have places for people to stay. You need a lot more affordable housing than what we have, and I'm talking specifically for the city of Winter Haven, but I know it's a problem throughout the state of Florida because for the last 10 years, the Sadesky Fund, which is dedicated for affordable housing, was used to balance the state's budget. So affordable housing wasn't being built. We just had a project that's going to be occupied in Winter Haven. It's going to be leased out in March, 88 units. They have already received 3,700 applications for 88 units. I mean, the housing crisis is real in Winter Haven, so I would address that. And then basically you have to have a quality of life. Your residents, we have the chain of lakes. We've got 36 lakes that are connected by canals. You have to have a quality of life. You have to have walking trails. You have to have things for people to do and grow and raise their family. That includes the schools. So I'm spending a lot of money, you all, but I'm going to attack all of the problems. And I guess finally, if you have all of that, then you want to know that you're safe. So you got to have police and fire and EMS. And so I would spend a lot of my money on that. And I guess finally I'm going to say, we don't have all the money that we want or that we may need. But all of the things that I just addressed, if we had all the money in the world, we're addressing those with the money that we do have.
Thank you. It seems like we have a good plan for that unlimited or large budget.
Mayor Birdsong, you may not know this, because it's brand new. Polk County will tender an offer for $20 million, purchase about 1,300 acres in your backyard, Mr. Mayor. This is the headwaters of the Peace River Basin, the very northern reaches of Jennifer, your territory, but I'm just telling you, Mr. Mayor, this is right off the presses. It is something that the County Commission has endorsed. We will tender that offer, but it relates to the funding, different funding sources, Jennifer, you alluded to. Federal funds are involved, state funds are involved, local funds are involved, but $20 million to acquire about just under 1,300 acres in the heart of a developing area is a blessing in light of the vision and the mission and the commitment that the County Commission has made in Polk towards long-term resiliency. Mr. Mayor, I'll talk to you about that offline.
All right. We do work together in Polk County. I mean, we really work together, the municipalities and the county itself.
I have a question off script here. Commissioner Kirouac, we had talked, and one of the foundation staples in our economy in the Heartland is agriculture. And agriculture is dealt through those 19 declared emergencies that I cited at the beginning. A lot of those blows were also directly to agriculture. As we go forward, what do you see as a region that we can work together in assisting our agricultural industry, and what's being done in agriculture?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, there's two things we cannot survive with: clean water and safe food. We could build tents, we could build fires, but if we don't have clean water to drink, and if we don't have safe food to eat, our existence won't be long. So, stormwater affects agriculture in many ways. Not enough water for agriculture is devastating. Too much water to agriculture is devastating. And we've certainly seen that in Hurricane Ian. If you just turned on the news, you've seen farms and ranches that maybe had small patches of islands where livestock was trying to survive. It's very important, I think, not only in our agriculture is still the #1 industry in Highlands County, so we take it very seriously. But agriculture is important to all of us. We all have a social media page or what have you that, and my cover photo says, as I speak with people or what have you, I say, how many of you out here are involved in agriculture? And maybe you get a few hands, and I'll say, well, I'm going to ask you again, because if you ate this morning, you're involved in agriculture. So if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. Each one of us every day is involved in agriculture. Agriculture helped build this building, the wood in this building, the clothes that are on our backs come from cotton. That's agriculture. This paper comes from agriculture. Agriculture touches every facet of our lives. Less than 2% of the population in the United States is left as farmers in this country, folks. Okay? That is something we all need to pay serious attention to. We have to be able to continue to feed ourselves as a nation and not depend on others for our food source. Okay? So, agriculture and resiliency is important in stormwater to agriculture, because you've got farmers that are drastically affected by severe weather events. And the challenges that have been in the citrus industry with citrus greening and what have you, they had a good crop going in 2022. And then Hurricane Ian came a few weeks before harvest and blew over 80% of the fruit off the trees, okay? And what's happened is they just can't take it anymore financially. And so that property gets put up for sale and gets put into development. And once, we know in agriculture, once properties leave agriculture, they never go back. So resiliency in dealing with stormwater plays directly into the survival of agriculture, not only in the state of Florida, in our nation. If we don't do things and are smart about how we do them and continue to flood out our farmers, then they're going to have no choice other than to fold up operations and try to salvage what they have in land value moving forward. So resiliency and infrastructure and wastewater infrastructure plays a severe role in the sustainability of agriculture.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do we have time? One more?
Yes.
There's a question there that I'd like to answer. It says, what role do cultural resources like cemeteries and historic districts play in your community plans? When I saw that, I went, oh my, there's something that I can certainly talk about. Our City of Arcadia Oak Ridge Cemetery, which has been there forever, actually had some burials disinterred, is that how you say it, when the Hurricane Ian came through. I mean, it was horrible, and I'd never thought that. This is like up on a bluff, man. This is some high property. Well, it flooded. And so we have undertaken to remedy that. The folks that were disinterred have been reinterred. And I'm only laughing because I can. But we also are working to improve the drainage out there of that cemetery. It is not far from where our ponds are for our wastewater treatment system. So this is a pretty good opportunity to talk about this. The other thing is about our historic district. Downtown Arcadia, I was born and raised there. I love my downtown. I hate it when someone comes through and does something to one of the buildings, but that has all come to an end because we have our Historic Preservation Commission in place now. That's sometimes a mixed blessing, but we can talk about that offline sometime. But I do want to talk about Hurricane Ian in particular because it did devastate some of our buildings downtown. Our historic Opera House, that, I mean, it was just, really, the windows were blown out. It's a two-story building, had those real high arched windows. They were blown out. Another building, of course, these buildings were built after the fire in 1905 in Arcadia, and I thought they'd done a more substantial job than that to keep them together. But we had one of the buildings adjacent to the Opera House that the whole wall was coming down. And the owners of the property undertook to restore the building. Of course, it being privately owned, we couldn't use any city funds to contribute to that, but we did work with them in other ways. We didn't cut them any corners, but we allowed them to continue to use the building, except the unsafe one with the wall. And it's still undergoing some restoration right now, but it's really coming together. But what I wanted to say about what's our community plans, I think we're just on the, I don't think there's another City of Arcadia council person here, so I can say this without having to advertise that I'm here. We should be soon establishing a CRA for downtown Arcadia. And I'm really looking forward to that in helping out. The Main Street Arcadia program had gotten a grant recently. I think it was only $15,000. No, not $15,000, $50,000. More significant, right? From T-Mobile, of all places, to provide funding for facade rehabilitation on some of the downtown stores. 19 of them have taken advantage of that so far. So next time you come to Arcadia, go downtown, you should see some improvement. And so I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to respond to that question. Thanks.
Thank you. we have time for one more? Or? 5 minutes. Okay, we've got 5 minutes. I had something profound to say, but I forgot, so that's good. And if y'all see anything on the screen too. Kind of while we're looking, I'll defer to our board here for looking at the next question, but while they're looking, I really want to thank also all of our partners in the room. It takes a region, it takes a community, and I see many of our partners here, and many thanks to the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, who is also a part of the Heartland Regional Resiliency Coalition. And
Yeah, Jennifer, I got one thing that I'd like to comment on before our time is left that I failed to mention, that, currently right now underway in partnership with the South Florida Water Management District and Army Corps of Engineers in the state of Florida, there's a current project that is underway, and the acronym is LOCAR, L-O-C-A-R, and it's Lake Okeechobee Component A Reservoir System, okay? And the proposal of this project is going to be upwards of close to a 14,000-acre above-ground water impoundment built in the southeast corner of Highlands County. I believe some of it may go into another neighboring county, but a vast majority of it, that will be in Highlands County. And so there's a lot of due diligence work being done right now. They're talking with landowners, but the funding is there, or the funding is going to be available to build it. It's a multi-year project, billions of dollars in this project, as you can imagine. But one thing, if this project comes to fruition, that it's going to help in water quality, especially down here in Southwest Florida, is that it's going to give the ability when this project comes online during the rainy season, the water that comes down from Kissimmee Shingle Creek is the headwaters to the Kissimmee River, flows into Lake Okeechobee, and we know the challenges that has presented the state. We get rains, the lake level rises, we have to release water east and west. With a project like this, we would be able to store the water during the rainy seasons, during the rainy time of year, and then during the drier time of year, slowly release that water back into the system. That would give us the ability as a state to keep Lake Okeechobee at a more constant level, which is better for the ecology of the lake, would reduce vastly the amount of discharges that has to come out of the lake going east and west. So, it's going to be a very large undertaking, but it is something that I wanted to share so the people that are here today, that they understand that there's things in the works to try to help this problem of water flowing north to south, especially into Lake Okeechobee, and the discharges, it's why we're here today, is these discharges and what it has caused the problems down there. So there's things in the work, and hopefully they continue on path, and we're going to be able to accomplish some of these things, because I believe with the capacity of that 14,000-acre reservoir, which will also have a recreational component to it, which is great, that will be a major step in reducing the amount of water that's going to have to be released out of the lake.
thank you. Well, I think that probably wraps us up. I just want to say, a lot of times when we get together and talk about a vision and say, don't let your future look like that blank sheet of paper. All of the things that you all mentioned today really shows that there is a plan for a path forward. So thank you all so much.